Thank you very much.
Great. One hand, virtual hand in the air for public forum when we get there. A couple minutes. I guess let's get started. Commissioner Bowes may well be missing today. Unsure about Commissioner Gilman, but let's go and get started if you're ready on your end.
We are ready on staff end. Thank you,
All
Chair
right.
Hogan.
Good evening, everyone. It's Brendan Hogan, Chair, calling to order the April meeting of the Public Works Commission at 6:32 p.m. Welcome all. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Does anyone have any? Oh, thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have any comments or modifications to the agenda? Commissioner Overby.
I have a question about the procedurally. I've been going back and forth on an item on the consent agenda, and I'm not sure. I think we should pull item C off the consent agenda because I was thinking we had a resolution of it, but maybe there's more discussion that should happen on that particular document. So I'll suggest pulling it off. I was going to ask about it if we were just going to have a discussion, but let's pull it off. Everybody would have gotten an email within the last hour about it.
Okay.
So I make a motion to accept the agenda with item C from the consent agenda pulled off to become 4.1.
Gotcha.
I second that amendment.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, we get to a vote then. Commissioner Archambault.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
Aye.
Commissioner Bowes or Gilman. Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. And Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Aye for myself. So all five presents. Agenda is passed. All right, moving forward to public forum.
Hi, Commissioner. Hi, Chair Hogan and members of the public. If you are looking to speak tonight during public comment, either right now or at future public comment periods that the chair announces, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, which you can find on the bottom of your screen on the toolbar on the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have called in or are going to call in, you need to press *9. That will alert us that you wish to speak, and then we will announce the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. Thanks to Channel 17 for covering this. If you have joined us on Channel 17's YouTube page, we do not monitor those comments in real time, so please join us on Zoom or via the phone if you do wish to speak during public comment. Chair Hogan, at this time, I will promote, if it's okay with you, Jason Van Drysch to speak in public comment.
Please.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair Hogan and commissioners. I'll keep this brief. My name is Jason Van Drysch. I'm a Burlington resident, and I am speaking today about one project in particular, but in the broader context of the fact that you are, as I understand it, in the next couple of months, evaluating the city engineer and making a recommendation to the administration regarding reappointment. I will also provide feedback via email and at your next meeting, but I wanted to do at least some of the feedback at the meeting itself via spoken comments.
Sure.
So I'm going to mention one project in particular, but it's emblematic of broader issues that I'll address in my written comments. And that project, as I'm sure you might guess, is the Champlain Safe Routes to School project, which included intersection reconstruction near my home at the corner of Caroline and Locust Streets. There's 4 things that I wanted to call out about this project. One is excessive delays. The project was originally conceived a decade ago and took a decade to go through multiple rounds of planning, design, and finally construction. And a decade is, in my opinion, significantly longer than it should take to deliver 3 relatively straightforward reconstructions of minor residential intersections. Second thing is inefficient use of funds, presumably due in part to the staff and consultant costs incurred because of the long delays and multiple rounds of redesign. There's multiple important elements that were on the table originally and that fell off of the table because of budget reasons. A paved path through Callahan Park from Caroline to the Birchcliff neighborhood, an east-west paved path along the northern edge of Callahan Park, and speed table and bump outs at Locust Street and Locust Terrace. None of those were part of the finished product. Third is failure to meet, as best I can tell, some of the key stated goals of the project. Last fall, when I was communicating with the city engineer about the project, he stated in writing in an email a goal of a target speed of 15 to 20 miles an hour for cars coming through the intersections. And really the purpose, one of the core purposes of the project was to slow vehicle traffic down at intersections where numerous people, including many, many children, cross the street to get to school and to get to the park. As I understand it, data have not yet been collected on speed going through those 2 intersections. But from what I'm able to tell from observing speeds and benchmarking them against a friend driving a car through for me at specific speeds, the typical speed going through the intersection is more like 25 to 30 miles an hour. So a critical difference from the very safe speed of 15 to 20 miles an hour. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight is multiple instances of poor quality work. One I'll mention in particular is the design incorporates some stormwater rain gardens and sort of double storm drains, one that goes to the storm system and a pair right next to it that is supposed to go to the rain garden. And the idea is that the water primarily goes to the rain garden, and then during very heavy storm events, when it's too much for the rain garden, the extra runoff goes into the normal storm system. When the project was first installed, one of the locations where there was those pair of storm drains had the storm drain for the rain garden installed about 4 inches higher than the storm drain for the storm system, such that no water whatsoever went into the rain garden as designed. That was fixed at city cost with a city crew coming in and tearing up the storm drain and lowering it. But it's the kind of thing that really should have been gotten right on the first time around. And there are others, but I won't mention them for lack of time now. Big picture, this project is one of many reasons why I do not believe that the city engineer should be reappointed. And I'm bringing that feedback to you as the folks who are responsible for that evaluation. I'll be providing more feedback in that vein over the next few weeks. I believe we need a city engineer who is not only deeply dedicated to the city, which Norm absolutely is, but who also is committed to the kind of design and the standard of implementation that we've come to expect in a 21st century city, 21 years into that century. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Golding. Is there anyone else interested in public forum?
Chair Hogan, just because looks like some members of the public may have recently joined, I will just remind folks who do want to speak during this or future public comments to use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. At this time, though, it does not appear anybody else wishes to speak.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll close public forum and go to the consent agenda, now consisting of items A and B, update to free employee parking policy, and B, parking requests for Lakewood Parkway.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you for that motion.
I second the motion.
Seconded, Vice Chair O'Neill. Thank you. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, go to a vote. Commissioner Archambault.
Aye.
You, Commissioner Barr.
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Aye for myself. Consent agenda passes. Thank you. Moving forward to item 4.1, design vehicle guidelines. So welcome, a brief introduction from staff on this piece.
Public Information Manager Rob Goulding, could you promote members of our tech services team? City Engineer Norm Baldwin, Olivia Doris is on.
Will do, Director Spencer. I'm not recognizing them on the attendee list. I do see somebody signed up as Burlington DPW. So if that's you, would you raise your hand? There we go.
Sorry, Rob, I didn't realize I was not under my name.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Olivia Doris. I'm a public works engineer, and I was the project manager for the development of this design vehicles guidelines document. I procured and worked with an engineering consultant, Stantec Consulting Services, to develop a design resource that would be provided to consultants and other city staff that would provide guidance on the geometric design for traditional intersections. So this involves kind of classifying assembling classifications for different sized design vehicles, establishing thresholds and standards for which certain intersections would allow encroachments for certain classifications of design vehicles, specific to kind of the functional classifications of the intersecting roadways in the location within the city and within the downtown. So the goal of this document was to kind of provide a balance between the needs of pedestrian and cyclist safety, as well as functionality of the intersection. So ensuring that, you know, we're kind of narrowing up intersections enough so that we're providing safe crossings and slowing traffic down enough through these intersections, but not affecting the functionality of the intersections in a way that's going to cause issues with vehicles and cause delays. So that's the kind of purpose of this document. I understand Commissioner Overby and I, we've had a little bit of back and forth throughout the day today, and her concern was that we didn't really discuss or mention the use of roundabouts anywhere in this document. I do want to clarify that this document is specifically geared towards providing guidance for traditional intersection treatments. This would happen, of course, after the scoping phase occurs and after selection of a traditional intersection happens, and to provide guidance on that selection. But to kind of remediate Commissioner Overby's concerns. We offered to insert some language into the guidance which acknowledges that roundabouts can still be viable options for traffic calming, or for, slowing down traffic, managing traffic, and providing safer facilities for all users. Adding some of that language into the introduction and providing references to those design resources that can be used to design roundabouts. So certainly happy to work with the consultant to do that. I think that be straightforward, and Commissioner Overby, I think the language you proposed works well, and we'll probably use something to that effect. But if you have anything else you'd like to discuss, I'm happy to answer any questions. Or
Thank you for that. I will just point out that actually the commission is not really required to take any action on this. This is largely an informative item. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. For what it's worth, but yeah, no, I was happy to have a dialogue on it. Commissioner Overby, is there anything else on your end?
She's on mute.
Yes, I was just going to make sure I did a permanent mute instead of holding the space bar down. I understand. Yeah, I wanted to. I really do have a concern that the document is labeled intersection design vehicle guidance, and the issues of design vehicles are just as relevant to roundabouts as they are to the traditional, what you call the traditional four-way stop kind of thing. And so my concern was that this didn't reference that. And in our back and forth, when Engineer Baldwin weighed in on it just like 1 hour ago, he was saying that it was a financial decision, it was a cost decision, why this was only covering the old style four-way thing and not addressing all the safe kinds of intersections for bicyclists, pedestrians, and making, proper, easy mobility for vehicles. So, and I just literally before I came on the meeting, after I'd sent you the proposed language to adjust the introduction, I had we all received an information from Tony Reddington, who is like one of the roundabout gurus in Burlington and beyond Burlington. I'm not sure, Vermont, nationwide, whatever. But the reason I have a little bit of a concern now, and I would like to find out what the proposal might be if the language I proposed to you was to make sure there was a reference to it. And so it's very clear that you're saying this document doesn't relate to anything except after there's already been a decision about an intersection. But my concern is that nowhere does that really, is that reflected in the introduction and the application. So based on what Tony just sent to us recently, my concern is that it may be that this isn't, obviously, since we're not voting on it, that may be great. So maybe we just have this discussion and that we then say consultant money needs to be created so that this actually does deal with safe intersection design vehicle guidance, not just four-way intersections. So I'm somewhat, backing up from what I suggested, the one paragraph language, because it just makes me concerned that it might be that you could do better with this, and rather than you implementing this, it may be that it should be actually held off on until it can actually speak to the entire intersection design vehicle guidance, because it really does relate to everything. And if it's just a financial decision, I get that, and that's where I understood it. Now it really is. It was that there was only money to do this paperwork, this design work for what you call traditional intersections. So my thought is, I propose some language. Is it possible that you can actually, we don't have to do anything with this as a vote anyway, so we just discuss it, and then maybe you can, we can recommend that it needs to be revised to really deal completely with intersections and not just this one type of intersection. Is that a possibility? Obviously, there's got to be money, so somebody's going to pay for it.
Sure. Director Spencer.
Yes, thank you, and Commissioner Overby and Engineer Darius. What about us pulling this item from the agenda and working over the coming weeks to bring it back with some further clarification and a plan moving forward, being responsive to the Commission's interest? Is there need to get it any action tonight?
No, we didn't ask for any action tonight. Just one thing that I kind of do want to mention is that while I do recognize that, you know, there may be a time in the future where if some supplemental guidance is needed on roundabouts, kind of the main reason for putting this together was more about the immediate need for this supplemental guidance, again, specific to traditional intersections. No existing resources really catered to the city's specific needs and objectives. And I guess we're not in a point within the city where we kind of know, I guess, what type of other supplemental guidance we need to existing roundabout guidance. So I struggle to, you know, say, yes, we're going to delay this until we, you know, get, you know, supplemental roundabout guidance in here, because I don't think we're at the point where we even know kind of what that would look like, but there is an immediate need for the supplemental guidance for the traditional intersection. So I'll just leave it with that. I just think we're at kind of different points with each of these different intersection treatments, and but I'm definitely happy to discuss how we might be able to work some language into this document that kind of speaks to how we will you know, approach that over the next couple of years, and in the type of things we'll look out for, and you know, how we might be able to incorporate some additional guidance specific to roundabouts into this document. So
it just occurs to me, and it was my original problem, is that the intersections are always an issue in Burlington, and we have lots of intersections. And if we just don't deal with them as with the array of options we have, it, as I think I said in one of my communications to you, it pretty much disappears, the roundabout option, if you just have this and it doesn't refer to it, and it sounds very general about how we deal with intersections. And particularly all the design vehicle guidance applies just as well, you know, the length of trucks and what's going to go through. So it's, to me, it is really a glaring omission that we didn't do it properly, covering any kind of intersection that should be made safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and facilitating mobility. So it's not a matter of like an add-on. It really isn't. I was trying to figure out what we could do in the interim, but I really am. I'm really feeling now that I feel like you really, and you obviously, this can be for, you know, you can use this as your, you know, without having it be official. You're obviously going to be using it for people, but it's not an official document. Obviously, we've been living for years with no official document, as we've been living for years with using the NACTO and the FHA, or, you know, Federal Highway Administration roundabout guidelines. But in order for us to actually move forward, people need to see, okay, if you're using a four-way intersection, stop, traditional, what you call it, this is how the trucks move, and here's the cars move, and we figure out that, or here's the way we deal with it when we deal with roundabouts. So they're all comparable right in front of everybody, and it's not a matter of an add-on. So that's, to me, why I think you've got something. If you feel like you need something right away, I'd say people are going to use it because you feel like it's better than nothing for what you're doing now. But I really feel like it definitely is inadequate for dealing with making it really obvious when a roundabout might be more appropriate, and where the same design vehicles can get through the intersection better, worse, you know, that needs to be dealt with. And we're in that plenty space where we haven't gone where a lot of communities have. to understand how roundabouts work better. We're still in the barrier of it costs more money, it's more complicated, you got to get rights away. We really haven't taken it on as committed to where can we do it and where will it make things safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. So this makes it look like this is the way to make it safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. And so that's, I think, a lot of work went into it, but that's my comment about this. And right now, I don't feel like the sentences that I proposed for you are going to cut it. Because I have a feeling we're just never going to get around to doing the roundabout thing. It's always going to be, we'll just use the national standards and they aren't relevant yet to us. So we'll get around to this local version that will be helpful in our circumstances, which is why you did this one. We'll have to do the same thing. What's the local conditions that make us able to do roundabouts and how do they work here? So because it's design vehicle guidance, that applies to everything. So anyway, that's my input. I'll shut up. The other commissioners may have input on it, but that's my reason for having, taken up so much of your time today trying to work this out early.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's certainly a good point. And I think over the next few weeks, let's stay in communication and figure out how we can, satisfy your concerns right now. And yeah, I don't think we need to continue this discussion here. I think we can kind of do it offline over the next few weeks and work with the consultant to get some appropriate language in there. It looks like Norm has something to say.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Lily. City Engineer Baldwin.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that, we had very limited funds and very limited time to respond to this issue. And it was driven by the fact that we had Maple and St. Paul as a challenging intersection, that we took a first step and it caused all sorts of kerfuffle within the city and we had to respond. And so this was a very limited scope just to make it fit in, to respond to that complaint, that concern, and to really kind of make it fit. And so, it's an evolution, it's a process of learning. And we had no intention of purposely excluding roundabouts. We were trying to deal with the matter at hand in front of us. And as the city engineer, I've experienced very little to no standards of practice as I walked into this position of responsibility. And we are stretching ourselves to do so many things at once that it's impossible to be comprehensive as the commission would prefer and still try to respond to all the capital reinvestment that's going on a daily basis. So, it's not our intention to step over or step aside or avoid roundabouts. We have no aversion to roundabouts. Roundabouts have their place. We understand the value it provides. And it is a method of control just like any other that we would apply, but it has to be specific to the challenge and the task. And so it's really hard to sit and hear that we somehow have purposely stepped over the idea of a roundabout. We are not doing that. We are actually stepping out and stepping hard in front of things at great risk with how people perceive our level of professionalism doing the work. Because when you take risks and it doesn't work, people want to call you on it. And we're taking risks. So I would hope the commission sees that. We're taking risks.
Thank you. All right. Do my fellow commissioners have any comments or questions on this item? All right, we're seeing none that we're not on the hook for a decision on this one tonight. Are we safe to move forward here? All right.
Yes.
Thank you for the discussion. Appreciate it. That said, we'll close out item 4.1 and move to item 5, water resources rate recommendations.
Great. We'll be joined by our water resources team led by Megan Moyer, division director, and we have a short summary presentation of the changes and adjustments made since our last presentation to you a few months ago. And we're seeking your recommended approval of the proposed rate study tonight, and appreciate your time.
Let me get my screen shared up here. Hold on. How's everybody doing tonight?
Well, thank you. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. Why am I having technological difficulties though? Okay, screen 2 is my screen. Sorry, I wish there was a way for us to do this in advance, but I don't think there is. Are you seeing what looks like a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get to the right slide. Hang on to your hats, people. Okay. So everybody can see our title slide. Okay, so as I think Chapin was mentioning, as the system kicked me out and then brought me back in as a full panelist, we are here to just do a quick check-in. We last visited with you all in January of 2021. And we just, again, wanted to do one last check-in after our latest round of public outreach, which included the NPAs, a public meeting last week, and a postcard that was mailed to every single residence in Burlington. And we also wanted to take the moment to just share a couple of quick changes that we think are improvements to our overall proposal. So I've given the rest of my project team the night off because they have been doing the bulk of the night meetings. But we do have a fantastic project team, Jessica Lavalette, who's our customer care finance manager, Jenna, who runs the policy and programs part of our work, and then our consultant, Dave Fox. So as I think you guys recall, the whole impetus for this project, it started back in 2019 when we started trying to figure out how to address the tension between the rate increases that we need in order to make sure we can take care of our system, and the fact that those rate increases, if not now, ultimately could cause affordability issues for some of our ratepayers, particularly those who have less annual income than some of us. We talked about how there is a cost basis justification for being able to charge different customers different rates. And that is based on the sort of base level demand that our residential uses are needed. And then as you get into irrigation and commercial properties and providing fire protection, those types of uses actually place additional burden. And so in many utilities, those types of customers actually get charged more. Ultimately, the overall rate structures that we're proposing haven't changed since we met with you in January of this year. The one thing I really wanted to draw your attention to is the fact that by establishing class-based rates, so we're not leveraging the cost of service recovery to the extent that we could. We are doing it for irrigation rates, and then also for being able to charge single-family homes, as well as you'll see now duplexes and triplexes, a different rate. We could have, and we certainly looked at charging commercial properties more. But what it came down to is those properties are already experiencing a significant cost of service realignment as it results to the fixed fee that we're going to be charging them. A lot of those buildings have very large meters, and so they are seeing a larger fixed fee readiness to serve charge. And then many of those properties also have fire services. And so that's another cost of service realignment that they're seeing with this turn of the wheel. And that was resulting sort of on average of commercial properties seeing an increase of about 9% in their water bill. That plus the fact that we know businesses are struggling due to COVID, we felt like, it's not the right time to additionally also charge them more volumetrically for the water. But I wanted to make sure that citizens and decision makers knew that with this specific ability to charge different customers different rates, we would be able to kind of look at that in the future, in future years' budgets and future years' rate setting, and decide at that time whether it was the right time to start sort of ooching their rates up to start matching their true cost of service. On the affordability side, we had talked last time, and we were super excited to bring forward a Lifeline Rate tier. And this is one of the central tenets of our proposal, and it centers on this concept of essential sort of life water, right? Everybody uses a different type of water, but there's a certain amount of water that we are tying to the median usage for a particular property type that we feel like should be discounted, if you will, because it is really necessary for life. And we want to make sure that folks who are able to use median or less kind of get a benefit from that. The cool part since we met in January is that we have figured out how to also provide that tiered rate for duplex and triplex customers. The one thing I want to draw your attention to is it's not a simple linear relationship where if a single family gets 400 and a duplex gets 800, duplexes and triplexes, because it's a shared yard, often smaller units, their median usage when we look at it in the system is actually lower. And so the tiers for the Lifeline rate tiers for duplexes and triplexes are set at 600 and 900 cubic feet of water for the property respectively. We're still advancing the fixed fee waiver, and that's the piece that if somebody has income constraints and they can show eligibility or they can show proof of being eligible for certain types of federally linked programs like LIHEAP or SNAP 3 Squares, they show us evidence of that, we're going to go ahead and for a year's time waive that fixed fee, that readiness to serve charge for those customers, which is going to see when we look at the rate impacts table provide significant benefit. We had also added senior eligibility criteria. You know, we hope people are going to be somewhat self-regulating and that somebody who happens to be over 65 that doesn't have income constraints isn't going to come in and apply. We're kind of willing to have that risk in our system, at least for this first year, and kind of see what happens. Rather than trying to set up some sort of other type of income verification process. And then we're also providing that fixed fee waiver to nonprofit affordable and senior housing developments. One other thing we added is we haven't previously had a budget billing option. People are required to pay whatever it is they use that month. But with the budget billing, they hopefully are going to be able to kind of smooth out those payments if they have typical fluctuations. Can you guys hear the background noise? I certainly can. My children are yelling upstairs. Is it okay?
It's fine.
Okay. Two things that we're additionally really excited about. We finally did the last turn of the budget, and we've been talking about this for some time, at least the last couple of years. We are, for the first time, going to be doing a little bit of a pilot program, some infrastructure and some infrastructure assistance and conservation assistance programs. So in the case of the infrastructure assistance, we've talked about the significant costs that can be incurred when somebody has to replace their sewer lateral. The sewer lateral is entirely on the private homeowner. The city doesn't have any ownership from the house to the main. We don't have enough money yet, and we don't really have enough data to support, the grants or loan programs to be able to help people replace that piece of infrastructure. Though we do think there is a possibility that we could see some money from the state or from the feds in the form of stimulus. So we're keeping a close eye on that. But what we are going to do is for your typical residential property, we're going to pay up to $200 of what seems to usually be a $250 cost to get your line filmed. So we hope that by doing that, people will at least have the information about what the condition of their line is, understand probably through that process what an estimate might be to repair it. And then it will also give us data to develop those future programs. For income qualified customers, we would go ahead and cover up to $250, which at least with the filming companies that we talked with, should cover the whole cost. On the conservation assistance side, right, a big piece of controlling the cost of your bill, you can try to get your kids to use less water or your spouse to use less water, but the best way is actually to engineer something in and make it harder to use said water. And so we're looking forward to being able to provide $75 rebates for residential customers towards the purchase of a WaterSense plumbing fixture. I think at Lowe's or Home Depot, you can buy a dual flush low flow toilet for about $100. And so we think hopefully people are going to be using these rebates in that way. The one other thing I wanted to address, and we did talk about it this last time, but we're making a bit more of a commitment with this last turn of the proposal. You know, the WRAP, or the Water Resources Assistance Program fixed fee waiver, currently really only easily reaches single family properties and other individually metered residential units. So there's a limited number of duplexes or triplexes where the way the building was built, the units happen to be individually metered. And so that fixed fee waiver would apply in that instance, when and where the occupant is the actual account holder in water. And then, as we mentioned, the WRAP fixed fee is going to apply to nonprofit, affordable, or senior housing accounts. Unfortunately, renters and multifamily rentals aren't going to really have access in this phase. And why is that? One of our biggest issues is that if the city provides a fixed fee waiver to landlords, some landlords, I'm not saying all, you know, we have no way of making sure that they actually pass that affordability measure on to tenants. And so we want to make sure if we are giving this money back, that it's getting back to the people who really need it. The other piece, as I kind of mentioned above, is that multifamily units often share a meter. So just doing the fixed fee waiver structure isn't really going to be beneficial in that particular instance. And so we probably need to look at it in a different way. I think, as we shared last time, most utilities across the country are struggling to address this gap. Most utilities don't have a renter specific program. DC Water and New York City Water are the only ones that we, or Raftellus, who works with utilities across the country, are aware of. And in particular, we're really looking to DC Water, who just launched their program, I think, in the last couple of months. And I can get into further details if people have questions about how their program works. But suffice to say, their program's new. We want to see how it works for them before we try it in Burlington. We also want to have a full year, up to 18 months, of us launching our existing program and seeing how many applicants we actually get, so that we'll be better able to turn any sort of remaining money that we had set aside into the next phase of the program. But what we are going to do is promise to evaluate for you all and for the City Council by no later than April 2023, what those other options may be out there. This is just a quick redo of the rate tables that you had seen in the past, and you'll see the addition of the duplex and the triplex tiered rates. So that first increment, that first tranche of water is discounted, but you do in exchange then, when you use more than that, do end up being charged more. Multifamily residential, commercial, city, all are being charged that same $4.24 under our proposal. But we are still advancing that irrigation and or heating cooling water, which is using clean, safe drinking water for something other than what we believe its intended use is going to be charged more. There is going to be an exemption for the community gardens. And folks should know that if this is something that may be unpalatable, that they can look at having their irrigation meter pulled. And then they would be using, it's complicated because if they do that, then they will be getting charged wastewater. So there's definitely some cost analyses that need to be done before somebody goes that option. When we looked at a redo of the customer impacts, based in particular on adding the duplex and the triplex categories, one sort of benchmark, if we weren't doing any of this, we didn't have a rate increase last year, we've got a fair amount of debt service to cover, we would have the typical single family home owner, myself included, would have been seeing an increase of about 5.9% in their overall water resources bill, assuming they use the same amount of water over last year. So that's sort of the good benchmark to compare against. If you look at the median volume single family customer with our current rate proposal, they're not going to be seeing an increase at all. They're going to be paying about what they're paying this year. If you go down to the duplexes, the median volume customers, they're going to be seeing a decrease, as well as the triplexes are going to be seeing a healthy decrease. I think we talked last time about the sort of imperfection of the fact that low volume customers seem to be kind of getting the raw end of the deal. And this is largely because of the introduction of the fixed fee, right? So that fixed fee is about readiness to serve, and residential customers in particular aren't paying that right now. And low volume customers in particular, because our fixed costs are embedded in our volumetric, aren't actually paying their fair share now. And this starts to correct that. It does look like a healthy percent increase. It isn't for an unburdened customer that much money. It is $51 over the course of the year, or $4.25 a month. I think I would have more discomfort with the low volume if it wasn't for the fact that we do have this RAP program. So if somebody really is income constrained, they're going to be eligible for this low volume, this RAP program. And with that, they would be seeing a decrease. This is the customer impacts. This is just kind of to demonstrate that even though we aren't leveraging the volumetric rate for institutions in our commercial properties, they are already seeing a bit of an increase, which is, again, why we didn't choose this year to also hit them with a increase in the volumetric charge, although we are cost justified in doing so. Hopefully all of you got the postcard that we sent out. We've been really trying to push people who are concerned about these changes to complete an account impact summary request. With this, our customer care team looks at what the typical usage of a property is and then applies the new rates and is actually able to estimate what your future bill may be and whether it's going to be going up or down, and also why. We've also been sharing with people a number of different ways of action that they can take in order to mitigate any increase that they may be seeing. In summary, our team is super excited about this proposal. We're excited on the financial sustainability side because we've actually been able to prepare an FY22 budget it's built to ensure proper operation and sustainable stewardship of our infrastructure, and it has that targeted funding for those customer assistance programs that we've been talking about for so long. If we weren't doing this, all residential ratepayers would be seeing that approximate 5.9% increase on their bill, or at least single family duplexes and triplexes. With the proposed changes, we're super excited that the income qualified ratepayers and seniors are actually going to see a pretty significant decrease in their overall water resources bill, on average of about almost $100 a year for somebody who uses that 400 cubic foot a month amount. The majority of single family residential ratepayers are going to see a benefit on their water resources bill. It doesn't necessarily mean a decrease in all cases, but they're going to be seeing less than that 5.9% increase. Median single family users are not going to see an increase, and then duplex and triplexes are actually going to see decreases. And then lastly, even though we're not leveraging it fully, we now will have customer class based rate structures, which is going to allow for us to have that future conversation about how much more we could be or will be or decide to be charging some of our commercial customers. With that, those are the last few steps. We're visiting with you all. We're visiting the TUC next week, and then we are headed to City Council to hopefully have them review and hopefully support this framework, which would then be the basis for coming back in June when we approve budgets and setting rates according to this structure. Really like to thank my team. They've been doing an amazing amount of outreach. Customer care has been responding to these account summary impacts. We feel strongly that we've tried to keep no rock unturned as far as trying to get the word out to folks, but we'd love to hear from you guys.
Great, thanks so much. This is, exciting stuff to be moving on. That'll bring it to the commission for discussion. Let's start with Commissioner Archambault.
Yeah, hi. Just coming back in here. I know Megan has been hard at work at this with her team for a long time. So I really have no questions, just compliments for all the work that she's done. So thank you, Megan, for all this. I'm quite sure the council will be supportive, which will reflect all of the work that you have put into it. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
I echo what Commissioner Archambault said, and I really like the idea that there's going to hopefully be some help for those out there who may not be able to pay the increases that are commensurate with whatever their properties, their water usage is. So hopefully it's not going to be too complex to keep track of, but you've done a ton of work on this and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was just saying one more round of outreach when this gets approved, which we're very hopeful it will. It then turns into outreach to educate people about how these bills are going to look, because we do know it is going to be a shift in thinking, and we're prepared to get all the calls with people not quite understanding what's happening. So that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Megan, I totally geeked out and last week was sitting in on your presentation.
I saw you.
And I even went online and requested an impact summary and got that today. So that just because I wanted to kind of see the process, so I could just get excited even more about my water rates. I have teenagers. So I think if you throw it out to parents of teens, like what strategy do you have to save water? You might come up with some really great ideas. One question I have is, I appreciate the RAP program, but, and maybe you don't know the answer to this yet. I'm just anticipating folks who, especially the irrigation folks, there's some folks who have automatic sprinklers that go on all the time. And I feel like some of them are the kind of people who might complain about this increase or just complain. And then how do you, I guess, how is your team ready to deal with that? Maybe it's, you don't have to answer it, but just assuming that there's going to be that additional layer of outreach for that sector.
And that is a great point. So in addition to the sort of general outreach that we've done, the postcards, we are sending direct letters to anybody who has an irrigation account so that they are, it's not necessarily going to help them not complain, but they will be more prepared. The last thing we want is for somebody to not know this is happening, get the bill and be like, what happened? So we are sending them outreach, explaining why, it's the case, sort of explaining their options. So we think that will help, or at least will have people engage with us on that conversation now and not when they get the bill and they're even more frustrated. We also are sending direct letters to anybody who has that fire service, because that's that new charge that nobody's ever seen. And we think that it'll also give us the opportunity to make sure that our data is correct, that yes, they have a fire service and that we have the right size. So it's a very good point. And of all of the people, those are the folks, people are passionate about their yards. And it is a little bit in tension though, with the fact that it is clean, safe drinking water that we are putting on soil. And we're trying to price it in that way. And people may choose that their gardens are important enough that they want to keep having that service, or maybe they're going to come up with different ways of harvesting, stormwater, and we can give them a rain barrel to help with that. In most cases, they're going to still need more water, unfortunately, if they have really large gardens.
Great. Thanks so much. And great work with your team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
I have to second the comments about everybody who's saying it's been so excellent, the amount of work that went into this and the amount of time that's been put into it. Because a change like this, it's very complicated when you do have financial impacts on people. And I feel like it's one of the things that helps people to understand the actual cost of having that fresh water. It's actually a great deal. We don't have to go down the street and get water out of a pump in a bucket and bring it home. So we forget how important it is. And so I realize that I totally appreciate how much work and how much time and how much refinements as information has been been brought out, like the triplex and the duplexes that were just added. So I completely support this, getting it a sustainable basis, the cost of providing fresh water and treatment of the sewer water and the stormwater. So I think this is great. I appreciate this, and I will totally support this. Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you so much. And you say triplex like I do. We've been having this tension about whether it's triplex or triplex, and you and I are aligned with the triplex. I just want to say, so
From the Midwest, because it's maybe a Midwest thing versus an East Coast or West Coast thing.
Maybe I'm from Texas. I'll have to ask my Texas friends what they say. It's often when you have something like that that's different, you have to start asking people where you came from.
Do you ride a tricycle or a tricycle?
No, that's the thing. I do triathlons. So it makes more sense Latin wise that it would be tri, but it's been rolling off my tongue to say triplex. I don't know where I want to land. So
I like triplex. Go for it.
Luckily, our vote will be on printed material and not on pronunciation.
Exactly.
On my end, just a couple of questions. If I wanted to know what size of service I have, is there an easy way to find that out? Or do I request an impact statement like Vice Chair O'Neill?
Right. I know there's a meter sizing review request where you can submit information to make sure that you have the right meter size. So what we're finding occasionally, particularly for large buildings, is that the people have thought bigger is better. The design engineers have thought bigger is better. And sometimes when we look at it again, a building actually could have a smaller meter based on the number of fixtures. So there is that. I don't, let me just check. I will check while we're talking. I can't remember off the top of my head if there is a form for having somebody to come check your service. Otherwise, it would be for a larger building where this would apply, where you have a fire service and you would just need to literally measure the diameter of the pipe that you see coming in your wall. The service size isn't going to affect a residential property like a single family duplex or triplex, or it wouldn't in most cases. It's really the larger ones.
Okay, thank you. And one question on your opportunities to save. Was a little unclear on under the fixed meter charges, and this is you had it on slide 15 if you want to flip back to it.
Yep.
Your fixed meter charge, one of the opportunities was listed to evaluate meter removal. What is that? A meter seems pretty fundamental here. What does the meter removal mean?
That would probably be in the case where you occasionally we come across people who have bypass meters or have other meters that are just there waiting and don't need to be used. I think the other one would be the removing your irrigation meter. So if you're somebody who has so people in the past, there has been an advantage, particularly because we charged them the same rate to, if you just water your garden with your regular domestic water meter, you're going to get charged for water and for sewer, even though that water is ultimately not getting back to the wastewater system. So people in the past, it was advantageous to put in an irrigation meter because then we would only charge you for the water that you were using. I think it's going to depend on where people are on the break point, but in some cases it may be better to just go back to the old way for some properties versus keeping your irrigation meter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that helps. All right, nothing further on my end. I'll open it up to public comment at this time.
Hi, Chair Hogan, there is nobody currently signed up, but just as a reminder for members of the public, if you do wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom.
All right.
And at this time, there's nobody signed up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Golding. Therefore, we'll bring it back to the commission. There is some suggested language in the packet around providing our support for this as it advances to the TUC and to the full council later on.
So motion to approve staff's recommendation using the language provided in the packet.
Thank you.
And I second that motion.
We have a motion that's been seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion around that motion? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. Commissioner Archambault.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill Bavanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Aye for myself. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it immensely. And my team is going to be so pleased because it has been work, but it's been very passionate work. We've got, yeah. So thank you so much.
It's very exciting. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Stay away from the winter.
Yeah. All right, moving forward, item 6, consolidated collection study updates.
Right, from one large policy item to another. This one over in our maintenance division. Division Director Lee Perry is here to give an overview of consolidated collection as we evaluate whether there's a more efficient, cost-effective, and more environmentally friendly way of collecting our trash, recycling, and organics. So while it was listed as an action item on the agenda tonight, we are not seeking an action tonight. We were able to give ourselves time to do the presentation tonight, seek your input and any questions you have over the coming month, and then seek your direction next month. So with that, Division Director Lee Perry has a short presentation, then we'll open up for questions.
Great. How's everybody doing tonight?
Well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It stopped snowing, so my life is good. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a quick minute. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so we're here to talk consolidated collection, as Chapin said, and we're going to talk about the results of the franchise study we had, and as well as the municipal model that staff have been evaluating these past 6 to 7 months. Give you a little background on consolidated collection. There's many communities that coordinate the collection of trash, recyclables, and food scraps here in the city of Burlington. It is pretty much a subscription based, where residents will contract with a private hauler to pick up their waste. According to a survey of 461 communities nationwide, this is actually not the norm. Only 11% of communities actually subscribe to this service, where on the other hand, it's a more common approach at 83% of communities having consolidated collection that are either municipally operated or contracted by a municipality through private haulers to have the collection of trash, recycling, and food scraps. And a little more background, the idea of consolidated collection has been in our region for decades, and as recent as 2018, City Council passed a resolution requesting that DPW undertake a citywide consolidated collection feasibility study, and we partnered with Chittenden Solid Waste District and the City of South Burlington. And the study we had done, it was evaluated the franchise collection model of consolidated collection, which you can see all past materials can be found at the city website, DPW Maintenance Consolidated. And the summary of the results from the franchise study, who was completed by our consultant, GBB, it listed many benefits, such as, reduced cost, reduced environmental impacts, reduced litter, noise in neighborhoods, increased recycling and diversion through consolidated collection, increased safety, less traffic on roads and neighborhoods, especially the smaller areas we have, tight roads and not good visibility, increased compliance with state and local mandates. And it also allows a more fair bidding process for, all haulers. We have the 3 big ones around, as well as some smaller haulers, and this would give the smaller haulers the opportunity to possibly bid on districts or some of the other services that would be provided, such as bulky items and such. The program would also allow residents to opt out of service, meaning they could self-haul to drop-off centers. And this allowance, could possibly be capped at a certain amount. This next slide breaks down that 83% number of how common it is that franchise consolidated collection is in the United States. So it's broken down to that 58% would be private haulers contracted by a municipality. 40% would be where a municipality is actually collecting the waste streams themselves. And then the 2% is municipalities bidding on contracts to remove the recycling, trash, and compost. So when the city did their municipally operated collection evaluation, we found a lot of the same benefits that went along with the franchise model. And this past summer, we presented, the city, CSWD, and GBB presented the franchise study to the TUC committee. And in that presentation, some questions arose from the TUC that they wondered, and the public, why we didn't explore a municipally operated consolidated collection model. So with that, they requested that that staff do a municipally operated study. Gave us 6 months to do it. So we came back this past March with a conceptual budget and presented it to them. And in that, a municipally operated collection model, it'll provide, like I said, similar environmental and cost benefits that the franchise model outlined. But in that, the staff, through multiple conversations, this is going to have to be a new division or department that needs to be created to support this municipally operated model. And with that, it's projected to require 14 new full-time employees that would add to the 3 existing recycling employees we have, for a total of 17 employees in this division. And they'd be ranging from CDL drivers, there would be a manager, customer service, billing, fleet, and outreach and enforcement personnel. And with that, there's a lot of capital invested into this program. Upfront capital cost between 5.9 and 6.7 million. And that really, it depends on size of subscription and location of facility, as I'm going to explain as we go down through the bullets here. So for fleet, we would need 1.4 million. We're going to have to add 4 new fleet vehicles to that fleet. It would be split body trucks, similar to our recycling trucks we have now, that we would pick up trash and compost with. We would need another recycling truck because, implementation time, the fleet we have in rotation of replacement will be needing another recycling truck, as well as a pickup truck for the manager of this division to deliver carts and respond to customer requests. And, we're going to need a place to house all the staff and equipment, the carts, the trucks, customer service people. And at our existing 645 Pine Street location, we just have reached max capacity down there. And with environmental restrictions, we can't expand on the building. So we need to find a location. And the 2 that we came up with were the 339 Pine Street location of the former street, Department of Public Works, and 195-201 Flint Avenue, which the city is in an option agreement right now with Chittenden Solid Waste District, and that option ends this fall. So we would either need to purchase the property, or at 339 Pine Street with environmental restrictions, it would be costly to build a building on that property with all the environmental restrictions. And then next is, 900 to 1.2 million for equipment. It's a lot of recycling carts, a lot of trash carts and compost carts, 13,000 plus residents would need one of each. We would be eliminating blue bin use. Everyone would have a cart for all 3 waste streams. And lastly, billing and customer service, would need to be provided. And in our conceptual option, we explored using Water Resources Harris FlexiBill software for billing purposes. And on this next slide, we have a breakdown of options between municipal and franchise. You can see one option, the 0% opt-out, is using the Flynn Avenue property in there, and that would be a weekly no opt-out and annual cost to the resident of $414.38 and $34.53 a month, and so on and so forth for the 15 and 25% opt-out. And you can see the comparison between the municipal and the franchise models. They're fairly close. I do want to point out that in the 25% opt-out, in the initial study, the consultant only gave options up to a 15% opt-out. In staff's conversations, we figured, with the residents in Burlington, we kind of got a little better understanding that there would probably want to be more of an opt-out than the 15%, because people like to self-haul, use a drop-off center. It's a social aspect of it as well. So we added that 25% opt-out. And in looking in that, because we had to adjust the disposal cost for the franchise model, because when they did their study, soon after, they raised the rates on tip fees for trash disposal and recycling. So we adjusted those rates, and the 25% opt-out option was not close to what we thought it should be. So I called the consultant, and they're going to work on some numbers for us and give us feedback on that. And I'll touch base with them this week. And below that, you can see the current subscription monthly price range. So this is what private haulers charge residents to pick up 64-gallon weekly trash and recycling, which is $28 to $49. But these costs do not include compost and food scrap pickup. So that would be an added cost to that price. And you can see they're pretty comparable to what the monthly cost assumptions are. So next steps, we're meeting with you tonight. We're going to the TUC on the 27th. We'll be doing additional research and be coming back to you in May for a recommendation. And then the TUC again in May, and hopefully council presentation with the consultant and a recommendation. And that is it for my presentation.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I will bring it back to the commission for discussion at this point.
Do you want me to stop sharing, or do you think you want to refer to any slides?
Just stop sharing for the
Okay.
moment. Thank you. Well, Vice Chair O'Neill Babanco, kick us off.
Sure thing. Thanks, Lee, for this presentation. So, I don't want to read between the lines, but I guess on the one hand, as you point out, if the city takes this on, then you increase the capacity for CDL drivers and employment in the city. However, it's a huge capital expense. And as you point out, then the priorities of the city then have to get shifted if we're starting really not quite from square one, but because you folks already do recycling, but certainly square one if we're going to add trash and compost to that. So I'm concerned that that we just don't have the capacity. Not that Public Works couldn't do it, because you folks continually impress us, but is this really where we want to put our priorities? So that's a concern I have. And then I guess on the other side, where if we go with franchise, is that what it's called? Like
Yes.
The private haulers, where's the enforcement, or can we add enforcement? We have kind of enforcement with the recycling, but there's rubbish everywhere from the blown recycling bins. Would we be able to better enforce bins that get tipped over, whether they're recycling or trash, if we get an RFP out for the private haulers?
Yeah, and that language would have to be written into that RFP and with performance standards and consequences. And DPW is still going to have to play a role in one way or another with, just in conversations we've had, there's going to be missed stops. How concerned are contractors going to be about those missed stops? Will we still have to get a manager to oversee the private contractors to help enforce this with our code enforcement? That's something we've talked about as well.
So you wouldn't see, so if we were to go as a city with the franchise model, we wouldn't lose any city jobs as a result?
Well, we have our 3 recycling employees we have now doing recycling. My goal is to absorb them preferably into the street department or maintenance division. But as of right now, yeah, we only have the 3 that do all of the recycling, which is why we're so conservative with labor for the municipally operated model, because there's no redundancy within our recycling program. Whenever someone gets hurt or is sick or takes a vacation, we need to take our employees from the street maintenance division and have them go on a recycling truck, which impacts our day-to-day jobs. It impacts our snow plowing. I mean, we've had employees out for months on injured, workman's comp injuries and have to substitute our street maintenance workers in a rotational basis to cover that. That's why, we're adding so much labor into that program.
All right, and then just one more question, kind of. So with the franchise model, and maybe you haven't thought through this, or I remember reading something a while ago, getting the private haulers to bid so that it's fair. I don't even know if that's kind of the best.
Yeah.
The best, so that you don't have. I'm just going to throw out a name, like you don't have Casella doing all the bidding, but you get, I don't know, there are a couple of small ones. Duffy's maybe is one of them.
There's Duffy's and yeah, and that could be written into the RFP as well, as they're only allowed to bid on so many districts, or could use a smaller hauler as like a subcontractor.
Okay. All right, no, that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
Okay, I have a couple questions. One comment to start with, that one of the decisions that relates between private franchise and public municipal has somewhat to do with how well the municipality can actually control, any of the conditions and the affordability, and basically having control over things like the cost and the quality. So having it municipally managed, you have some control over like affordability and like the work that we've just been doing with the water, but if it's all been contracted out, in some ways you have a little more challenges of pricing. So it's a philosophical decision about whether that should be a municipal function or not. And and we're heading in the direction of a lot more privatization of municipal services, because for some of the reasons that you see in the reports that you provided here, the study. But specific questions I had were, do you actually know the percentage of the 13,000 households now that are opting out and taking their own trash to the drop-off site? Do you know what that percentage of opt-out is right now?
I do not.
Okay, that's something we can figure out. But I mean, that would seem relevant to the projection of what would be the future opt-out expectation.
Yeah, the consultants, when questioning the local haulers, didn't get much information from them. They weren't they weren't too excited to give out that kind of information. And, you know, the surveys they did, I know I can look into that further just to make sure I'm not misspoken, but.
Well, it could be that it is, like you said, proprietary, so nobody wants to say what their customer numbers are, so that you could figure out that we have 50% of the people taking their own trash to the dump. I don't really know. So it just seemed relevant to what's realistic.
My understanding from the survey that was done, the GBB found it was approximately 25% of Burlingtonians self-haul, according to the survey. We'll double check that.
Yeah.
But again, it was a limited survey.
Yeah, but that's sort of where I was going with it. You know, you have 13,000 households, we know, and so the question would be what with that. I had a question about with opt-out. How does a cap work? You said that you can have an opt-out with a cap. What does that mean? That only certain, once you're the last person trying to get, you know, not have the monthly service, you're out of luck if you've already hit 25%. How does it work?
Right. We haven't set that up, but fundamentally what you're discussing is kind of the approach, is that there would be either a lottery if you wanted to opt out, or it would be a first come, first serve. The fundamental mechanics here are really ensuring the financial viability of the service. The fewer customers you have, the more expensive the bills are for the remaining customers. And as we've seen from Lee's chart, showing what the city cost is per customer, you see a real direct correlation. And once you get up to 25% opt out, the city's costs go up significantly over the 0% opt out. So it's a bit uncharted territory about how many people would choose the opt out, which is why trying to understand what the current situation is as an indication of the future scenario is so important. And that's why we actually did the 25% opt-out scenario. The consultant only did 15%. And I thought, you know, based on the survey data I saw, that we should run a 25% opt-out scenario.
Well, related to that is the cost of doing self-hauling. Who gets the funds for that? I mean, obviously they're probably dropped off at, you know, Chittenden Solid Waste District drop-offs, but obviously that 25% of the revenue that is going, you know, $6 a bag or $6 a bin to the drop-off. How is that money? Is the city in any way participating in getting a return on that 25% where people are doing a drop-off themselves?
Well, currently with the drop-off system, well, Burlington's drop-off center is closed for trash now, but the current system, the way it's set up to fund our recycling program, we would get that solid waste generation tax fee from Chittenden Solid Waste District for every for the trash that's dropped off down there. So we would get a monthly payment from them for the solid waste generation tax, which
So
in
they
turn
would, yeah.
would funds our recycling program. But if we go to consolidated collection, then there would be no solid waste generation tax.
Well, I'm
So-
just thinking that you've 25% of your business is going to, you know, to the drop off. Would the city be able to actually get a portion of the $6 for a garbage bin dropped off, you know, on Patchen Road? So there isn't there would be no transfer of some of the lost revenue by the people that want to do it themselves. Is that what you're saying?
Currently, there's no mechanism at the drop-off center to do that transfer, and CSWD, frankly, struggles to keep the drop-off centers open because they are expensive to run. So, you know, they're trying to figure out how to keep them financially viable. I did just find the breakdown of Burlington residents. Where does their waste go? 15% do drop off at the drop-off center, but 7% do both. And there are some other. So generally it is somewhere in the range of 15 to 25% who self-haul in some fashion. Some bring to work, some other, but then generally 3/4 do curbside curbside subscription collection.
Yeah, well, one of the related to this is why would people take their trash to the drop off? And one of the questions that relates to whether it's a municipal or a franchise is which of those options are going to actually help help reduce waste generated by residents. And, you know, so right now, I think I don't have hauling service because I do not generate a lot of trash. So for me, I will take it only because it makes no sense for me to be having no trash and paying monthly service. But the tipping point will be if all of a sudden I'm paying $28 a bin at the drop off. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be, we don't want to be having a system that encourages, you know, people to be making trash. And so I'm thinking, you know, which of those things, which of our options might actually encourage reducing trash? And it may be that it doesn't matter whether it's franchise or a municipal thing, but it is an important factor that if there's a profit motive from a private hauler to have more trash, we're not going to be encouraging less trash. You know, so that was a question of, it may be that's just something to think about in making this decision. It's not just financial. Let me see, I had some other sort of questions here. You had said that right now you have actually seen on page 3 of the document, you said that you actually seen an average increase of 40 tons a month of recycling.
That's correct.
Over what is the amount of, what is that as a percentage?
I'm not sure
curious how big of what that really means.
It's an increase because annually we've been basing our recycling budget on 2,880 tons, and now it's projecting to be, you know, right around 3,400 tons. Some months are more than others, but since the pandemic started, you know, everybody, I myself, I contribute it to people working from home, ordering more stuff online, because in talking with the drivers, it's just a massive amount of cardboard. So they all have smiley faces on them. They're Amazon boxes. And that's the bulk of our recycling right now. They're making 2 trips a day and then still having to come in early the next day to dump because they're still collecting recycling after the MRF closes, you know, material recovery facility out in Williston.
So this may be the future that we'll always have, this increasing recycling as a percentage rather than the trash part of it.
It could be, and I know personally myself, since the compost was made mandatory, my trash has gone down personally at my house, you know, because we're composting. That stuff is coming out of the trash. So instead of having 3 bags, I might have 1 bag now. And I expect that to reflect, you know, your concerns about more trash, but, you know, I don't believe everybody is composting right now or having their food scraps picked up. But, you know, they would have that ability now, and maybe those people that did self-haul would say, oh, look, I can get all 3 picked up for, you know, $34, whatever it is a month. And I know personally that I'm paying over $50 a month to have my trash, recycling, and compost picked up once a week. So I do believe there is a cost benefit to residents.
Yeah, some people just, I think that 25% potentially, it really depends. Like I said, if all of a sudden the rate at the drop off is tripled, then people might go, oh, well, it's the same amount to get it picked up as drop it off, right? So we don't really know. One other question I had about the proposal, whether you use a special revenue fund or an enterprise fund. What's the difference between those ways of setting up a municipal, with the municipal method?
Yes, an enterprise fund under charter has certain rights, and it's as a enterprise fund, for example, on borrowing for bonds, there are different thresholds for getting bond approval for enterprise funds. I think it's 50% from the voters instead of 2/3 for a general fund, general bond obligation. So enterprise funds are water, wastewater, stormwater, the airport, BED. So this would be a similar business to those.
But there was a suggestion that there's an alternative method of the special revenue fund that it could be set up.
Yep, special revenue funds, traffic and parking, those are special revenue funds. And so their regulation is a bit different than the enterprise funds. I'm not going to be able to, be the expert here as to how those regulatory differences play out. But the special revenue funds are less restricted often than the enterprise funds, which are kind of a separate business of the city.
Okay, and the last question is, with the franchise model, is that assuming you're going to be doing a franchise with the other, South Burlington and the other municipality where that was generated, as part of the study, or are we talking franchise just for the Burlington city?
Just for Burlington. South Burlington would have their own separate RFP to go by. Ours is just exclusive to the city of Burlington.
So there wouldn't be any cost advantage to having something done as a multi-municipality arrangement?
There could be, and that's part of the conversation of what we hope to bring you some more information for next month. We're talking to our union about their interest in doing this work. If it was municipally operated, we're talking to South Burlington. They are interested in a private franchise model. They're not interested in doing this as a municipally run operation. So, but to your point, Commissioner Overby, certainly if South Burlington, Winooski, and Burlington got into a consolidated collection district together, we could bid together. Maybe all areas would be geographically distinct within those communities, but that's something that we would need to further discuss with them.
Yeah, and you do have mentioned that large developments may not be part of this arrangement. So like a large apartment complex might just be not part of this whole arrangement at all, correct? So they can still continue with their own personal private hauler anyway. So I think those are my questions. I think my biggest takeaway from this is that it doesn't appear that there's a favorable interest in that in the municipal arrangement due to the amount of effort it involves. Not that that's a bad thing, but in fact, it's just sort of like nobody wants to do toll collecting, and so all the states are signing up for Easy Pass, which I think is a problem as well. Privatizing that, it's a problem. So I appreciate we've got the information here. I think I can see the handwriting on the wall of what the direction it will go, but I've just provided some input that I think there are other factors that are maybe not just financial that might not outweigh that, particularly control over the pricing. And when you're privatizing things, you lose some advantages of doing things that are best interest of the community, but might not be best interest of the finances of the private company that's doing the work. So that's my last comment.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Archambault.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few notes here. So I know this conversation has been going on for a long time. This commission has heard a presentation some years ago from the Regional Planning Commission, I believe, when this was first bandied about. So it was a great presentation. It was one of my favorite presentations. And I'm just going to go on record as I'm a big fan of the consolidation. Just a few notes about what we're looking at here. I see at the end, right in the summary, and I think Commissioner Overby summarized it well, like reading the tea leaves here, it seems that there's not much interest at the city level to take this on, just due to competing priorities, which is understandable. I would put out there, though, that this is not so much about competing priorities as it about equity. So, for example, New York City privatizes trash hauling programs and saw worker deaths and injuries increase exponentially as a result, as the owners of those companies squeezed the profits out of it, right? They pocketed the profits and had the workers pay for it by paying a minimum wage or what have you, and really not adhere to the safety requirements, although they were on the books, right? So let's face it, this is a way to squeeze people who work for a living and do super important work. So I see it as an equity issue. If this were to go franchise, even that, the backup option is an equity issue in the sense of smaller haulers now would have a fair opportunity to participate in in a market like Burlington's, which would be a pretty sustainable business model at that point. So a couple other comments here. If we do go private, I would recommend using haulers who have a positive track record with the city. Again, last time when we visited this, it was brought up of how some haulers have actually been cited by the department for violations of one sort or another. And let's be honest, right? We got choices here. It's not our jobs to accommodate those violators here. Let's just use the folks we can trust and cut away the others. So I know it's kind of a bit of a cold approach here, but you know, why are we kowtowing to people who just commit violations over and over again? Lastly, if we if we stay public with this option here, the municipal option, we have to pull it off without using the property taxes as a source of revenue. And I recognize, Lee, you've set up in the report here, it's kind of a revenue generating model in itself, and that fees would be passed along to subscribers, of course. So that would be super important, along with some kind of capital reserve for emergencies. You know, if a truck breaks down or we need a part, whatever it is, that we go above and beyond. We're saving for a rainy day, so to speak, and planning for that. So just sharing some of my thoughts. I am a fan of the municipal option, primarily for the reason of equity for employees. I'd rather see employees get a livable wage and have a reliable retirement rather than a wage where they're going to struggle and live off the system and then not really have a retirement to speak of in the end. And in the end, we're all going to have to pay for it anyway. So that would be my my utopia, if you will. No matter what, I am a fan of consolidated collection and appreciate the many years of work that have gone into this and would like to see this come to fruition. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
Thanks. Great comments from other commissioners, and I agree with almost all of them. I would say that as somebody who already subscribes to a private hauler and a private compost picker upper, I'm also, like you, Lee, seeing less trash but I have the ability to reduce the number of times they pick up. So I guess one of my questions is whether it's a municipal or a franchise, does the household, would I have the ability to say, I don't want to pay $50 a month because I don't have $50 worth of trash or whatever the cost might be. I would be able to say less, but then that's going to affect your bottom line, right? Because you're going to need a certain amount of money. And if I'm producing less because I'm doing the right thing, maybe I'm being sustainable, or I've got a really great garden that I'm using rainwater for, if Megan's still on here somewhere. I just, those are the kind of things that as a household, we're already seeing assessments go up. We're already seeing water bills go up. Now this might go up too. It's going to get so expensive. And I'll just say it really quickly, and then I'll go on to something else, that we might drive people out of the city of Burlington as these costs go so high that they can't afford it and they go somewhere else. Having said that, though, I am a fan of consolidated trash and waste and recycle pickup. I think that I'm probably more siding with the franchise, only because there's a lot of haulers out there, and I think there's a couple of really good ones. And I think that if you put it in the RFP, so that their proposals must have, maybe you set a minimum wage, maybe you set certain things within it. I know that in other organizations that I'm in, they set specific guidelines that whoever wins the bids have to comply with. University dining must use a certain amount of sustainable local foods, all those kind of things. And you can hold them to it. If they breach the contract, then you go with somebody else. So that's the kind of picture that I would like to see painted here. And I guess that's it.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Couple of questions on my end. Could you clarify, you mentioned in your presentation that a single cart would be used for all three services?
So it'd be a cart for each service. So there would be 3 carts per resident.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, no more blue bins for recycling. So they would be required to have carts with covers that, you know, can be lifted up by the, we call it toter arm on the truck to dump the cart.
Sure. Okay.
Which
my recycling cart of that description is blue as well. So the color doesn't didn't point me in the right direction, but yeah, I got you. Okay, so 3 covered
Separate.
things per
correct.
per residence. Got it.
So recycling would, you know, stay the same. You'd use your blue cart. Our recycling trucks that we have would pick it up. Then the additional trash and smaller compost cart, which would be picked up by the same truck with a split body, so we could get both streams at one stop.
Gotcha. Okay. So tell me, are you envisioning one stop for all 3 services? Are there like 3 compartments of the truck, or?
No, so
2?
there would be same day service, trash compost picked up with one truck, recycling with the other, because we already have the recycling trucks. So nothing would change with that.
Okay. I would recommend maybe in the informational material also including, just by way of comparison, what a current private compost hauler service costs. In your rundown, I don't know if that was included in the $28 to $49 that was quoted. You mentioned that was, not counting compost, but it might be relevant here, how much a compost service costs.
Yes, it's, I could get that information for you.
Okay. Thank you. I am a self-hauler, and I will just note in this conversation here that it has been an inconvenience that the drop-off center on the drop-off center on Pine Street has not accepted trash in months and months and months. For what it's worth, I would look forward to that returning, but I don't know if that's part of the equation here as well. Like, you know, given that calculus, if I got to slip it out to Williston or something, that sort of changes the dynamic for me. But and I think I just want to sort of echo some of the sentiments of my fellow commissioners with regards to the municipal option and the sort of control that then, you know, we're clearly dealing with drivers that are on our team and appreciative of other goals of the city and other sort of priorities and shared uses of the city, rather than I guess in ways that private haulers may not. But in any case, I mean, regardless, I would echo what Commissioner Barr was saying about sort of writing in the expectations into the RFP, so forth. Like here's in terms of behavior, courtesies to fellow city residents.
Performance standards.
Yeah. And yeah, one last thing with this, if we go with a municipal option, does that help our pool of available plow drivers, having extra truck operators on staff? Or
weekends and nights? I think it would. Yeah, with, you know, the additional CDL licensed drivers would help with you know, off-hour big storm events, as well as our sidewalk program.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay,
we would utilize them.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. Well, yeah, no, thank you so much for the presentation. I will open up for public comment at this time. I see one participant hand has been in the air for some time. Mr. Golding, could you check where we are with public participants?
Sure thing, Chair Hogan. I will promote over person currently listed as Wendy Coe. And if any other members of the public are still with us and want to speak, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom.
Okay, this is actually Gene Bergman. For those of you who know me, my computer always sets up Wendy for the reason that she's the big one in the family. And I know many of you there, but not all. I'm Gene Bergman. I live on St. Louis Street. I used to be a city attorney 20 years, including advising the Department of Public Works. So I'm happy to come on occasion, but only on occasions. And I'm here because I think that solid waste collection and management is recognized as a public need, a public function, and essential good. And consolidated collection is essential to fighting climate change. It reduces redundancy in trip collections, and it's shown to be more economically efficient. So I really support a change to a consolidated solid waste system. However, a consolidated system creates monopoly conditions, and those are the least conducive to lowering costs through competition. So in my mind, a municipal consolidated waste collection system is the system that is the most in the public interest. I really appreciated Solveig and Tiki, and what I hear other people speaking as well. I disagree that there's no interest in a municipal system. In fact, when there's been public input at the Trix, people have spoken, and it hasn't just been me. I think there's a lot more interest than what the staff may be portraying. And I hear at least 2 commissioners who are expressing that interest. And I want to encourage you to keep that and not give up. A public system, as you've heard a little bit from your own conversation, keeps democratic and economic control in the hands of the public. It's not based on exploiting the labor of low-wage workers. A public system means that we have greater control over rates, since public rates are not based on making a sufficient profit for private owners. It allows us to be more flexible, as you're talking about the reduction in your own personal waste, because maybe we would change the system to reduce the pickup to every other week. Whereas if you set it out for a bid system, you are going to be locked in for a significant period of time, because nobody will bid if you don't. And I don't think that this is the least. It builds a significant number of new union jobs, and it builds the region's middle class. And Tiki hit that nail right on the head. I just want to encourage you to never give that up as public servants that you are. The proposal on water rates is an example of how a democratic public control can and should take considerations other than private profit of owners into account. And a municipal collection system, I think, will be in a similar position to take the concerns of ratepayers, the environment, the taxpayers, as Tiki was saying, and workers into account. I truly believe that more privatization of public services is not in the public interest. And that's what franchising of a consolidated system would do. Since the current recycling system is going to be eliminated and turned over to the private sector. And those are, I really believe that that's going to be a loss of those jobs. And there's no guarantee that those jobs are going to be retained or absorbed. You have had a department with commendable frugality, and I have real doubts that you're going to be able to absorb them. You already don't have those positions in those systems that you're needing, and you got to pay for them. If you could easily do that, you would be doing that now. I understand the desire to always be good, but I believe that laying them off is more likely than not. The city actually is in a really good position to administer a program, having the experience to having run the citywide recycling system. And we run a water resources billing system. We run a public water system. We run electric systems. And this program is proposed to be self-sufficient. And so it would also build capacity into the department. I'll get to that decrease in innovative capacity in a little bit. But, just to reiterate, the biggest so-called advantage to privatization is its supposed cost effectiveness, providing the same level of service at a substantially lower cost. But DPW's own analysis, which is conservative, shows that that's not true. And consolidated collection creates the monopoly situation that makes competition not advantageous. So, the newest analysis, which is a little different than what they gave to the TUC, it used to be 13 cents, shows that there's a difference per month between the zero opt-out option of 36 cents a month between a municipal and a franchise option. That may, 36 cents a month, please. Even the municipal, the 15% opt-out is within 75 cents a month of the franchise option. It was noted by Commissioner O'Neill Vivianco, I think I have that correct, that there is going to be a need for monitoring. Others have said that as well. Those costs are not included in the systems that you have, in the analysis that you've got out. They've not been considered. And in fact, if we don't have a municipal system, then those are going to be on the property taxpayer. They're not going to be in the system. Maybe you can shovel some monies that you're going to be getting from the franchise. I'm not even sure how much, what kind of money we'll be getting. But I therefore believe that the franchise model's cost to residents is lowballed. And I got a direct experience. I think Tiki talked about going after haulers. I mean, because I know how we have underestimated the costs of enforcement around this tax through my years of having to work on it and having worked on it for the department. So all of this shows that even a conservative plan, that even with the conservative plan, that the city can undertake this public good in a way that's price competitive with the private option, and is still is focused on public good, not private profit. And it provides a bunch of other benefits. So it can pay, because it will be a revenue department or a revenue division. It can pay for the purchase of that Flynn Avenue facility. And that's, and if you look at the numbers, it's like a third of the land. So we can, I think also by having that drop-off center, then you're going to be charging people for delivering their own garbage. And so then we collect that money as well into a solid waste system. I think this is is another really good reason to go municipal. It also adds the capacity to DPW staff that's can used in other circumstances, like Lee was just talking about, and it contributes to the city's economic health through the payment of indirect costs for attorneys and HR functions. Those are democratic and public uses of revenues that we are generating. It's the benefit of being a revenue division. I had a number of issues with the memo that I shared previously with the department and the TOOC, and I won't speak to all of them. I just want to highlight two of them tonight and then close. The first is that the memo speculates that private haulers may not need to expand their capital facilities, unlike the city, but I don't see any basis for that. And in fact, even the biggest hauler, Casella, would have a greatly expanded customer base to service. And therefore, it's not unlikely that they'll have to expand their capital facilities and staff and then adjust their bid accordingly. It may not even be in the first one as they try to lowball to get the initial bid, but you can be sure that those costs are going to go up as they do consistently right now. The second is, I really disagree with the assertion that we are going to be losing the innovation capacity. And I know that Commissioner O'Neill made a comment about that. That might be true if the department was being hollowed out by austerity, but that is not what I've seen presented over the years. I know that people are stressed. We heard Norm earlier today, but as Megan showed in the work that her people do, there is tremendous capability in this department. And if you look at the presentation in the packet on page 75.
Mr. Bergman, can I ask you to wrap it up, please?
I got just this 2 points. left.
We're on your second. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You'll see that the use of innovation capacity is going to be limited to just 3 or 4 year startup. And after that, you're going to have a self-sufficient program. So this is a real smart investment. And I would also say that that's just a bald statement that says that we're going to not be able to do other things if we do this. So there is not an analysis or a description of that. And I just don't buy it. I love Chapin. I've known Chapin for many decades and worked with them a lot. I just don't buy it. So in sum, I really think that you should support a consolidated municipal solid waste system for the city. And thanks for letting me go on with a comprehensive statement.
Got it. Thanks for your input. All right. Mr. Goulding, do we have anyone else interested in public comment at this time?
That is it for now, Chair.
All right. Thank you. That said, we are not in need of any action on this item. As we heard, we will, as a preview, and we all appreciate the chance to get that preview and to have a discussion on it. So we'll look forward to revisiting this at a future meeting. Thank you all.
Chair Hogan, I believe we're looking for a vote on this, if just for clarity purposes.
No, we're not looking. We don't need a vote here.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you.
Yep. I think it was perhaps advertised as having an option for a vote, but we don't need it. We can take this as a preview in advance of a future vote. Commissioner Overby.
I understood we're going to have a vote at the next meeting. And the question I have is, what will we be voting on, to endorse one or the other of the proposals?
We are still doing research. At the very least, it would be great to get a vote fundamentally on whether or not the city should pursue consolidated collection. We've heard a lot of support on that tonight. And while there may be a difference of how to implement it, I think we're hearing significant support for the model generally, which is great. So that would be one area to weigh in on. And then the second area is how best to implement. And there is the option of municipal operation. There is the option of contracting through a bidding process with private haulers. We're also researching a potential third option of going out to bid for a franchise system and having the city go in and bid as well as part of that process. So we're doing more research on those three options, answering some of the questions that came up tonight, and hoping that we can give you enough information to guide your conversation so that you can put forward a motion at the next meeting regarding not only whether or not to pursue consolidated collection, but also a recommendation on how we should.
So I would hope that we are able to have separate votes, because people might want to vote for consolidated collection, but not one. The vote should be separate, not all in one thing, if you really want us to make those kind of recommendations.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other final questions or comments, commissioners? All right. I will close out item 6 then. Thank you, Division Director Perry. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, good evening.
You as
Thank you,
well.
Lee.
You're welcome.
Moving forward, item 7, BSD school travel plan kickoff. Welcome, Peterson.
All right. Pleased to have Associate Engineer Philip Peterson on this one. Philip, given the hour, if he can hit the wave tops, and we'll open up for questions after.
Lots of information this evening. Let me share my presentation. Okay, so, and I think we also have some representatives from the CCRPC here tonight. So we're working on the Burlington School District travel plan. We're collaborating with, of course, the school district, the CCRPC, and consultants from Du Bois and King. The purpose of this project is to complete a school travel plan for all elementary, middle, and high school, and high school in the Burlington School District. This hasn't been done since the 90s. And obviously we're going to use standards-based guidance, and we've created several SOPs, narrow streets, crosswalk guidelines, several other guiding documents, plan, BTV, walk, bike. The specific goals are to develop uniform traffic controls for the school district, while understanding that each school has some individual needs, so individual traffic control plans for each school, improve or enhance safe travel to and around each school. We also are interested in maximizing walking, biking, and active transit to schools, while minimizing traffic impacts to streets and neighborhoods around each school. So what we're working on right now is we're working to acquire data relevant to the travel and traffic control plans. Lots of information that we're looking at, traffic counts, you name it, widths of sidewalks, shared use paths, crosswalks, roadway and street network, AADT traffic counts, pavement width, all sorts of stuff. I could bore you to death with all the information that we're collecting. And to support the existing conditions data acquisition and the development of a more complete understanding of access considerations surrounding each school, especially as it relates to walking and biking, we've been conducting site visits to all of the schools on foot, bicycle, and automobile, collecting photography, documenting and assessing conditions. We're calling these walk audits. And we're also hoping that the local community will get involved. Walk audits are self-directed tours that document travel conditions, safety concerns, and opportunities surrounding your children's school. So parents, staff, and the school district made an announcement on April 12th of last week. They're kind of leading the way with the public outreach piece of the Burlington School District. There is a link for the project website. I'm going to post this presentation on the DPW agenda webpage afterwards, and I will send it to all of you commissioners. The actual project website is a much longer name, so this is a shortened link. Kind of our next steps is to develop citywide traffic control plans, some drafts, to also teams going to compile the results of all the surveys and all of the information and put together a draft report. The hope is that it's going to contain information that we can review with the commission by probably late summer at this point. And eventually we will have a final report, maybe by late fall, and it will involve recommended traffic regulation changes. And there are some potential construction projects that will come out of this. And that's it. I hit the wave tops.
Thank you for that. Well done.
Happy to answer some questions. Jason Charest, who is somewhere, Rob, in the queue, somewhere in the chorus of people. He's also here to answer questions if you want to promote him.
Oh, he's been promoted. Welcome, Jason. All right, Commissioner Overby.
I just am trying to figure out what exactly is happening here. What is the end result of this? Are we trying to create maps of walk paths for students, or I'm not sure what exactly the end result is of what this project is.
It's comprehensive. I think I made that pretty clear in the presentation, that it's comprehensive, that we're looking at using MUTCD Part 7, which is Part 7 of the MUTCD is specific to school travel plans. And we have not looked at the entire travel network of all the schools in the school districts in 30 years. So it's time to do that. We have opportunities that we're looking at. We want to have a more active transit network. We just want to look at the school travel plan. How are people getting to school? How can we improve safety? That's kind of the plan.
But is this a requirement from somewhere that we do this every, periodically? I mean, I get it, it's a great idea, but I'm just curious of where it's coming from, that all of a sudden it's come out of the woodwork that we're doing this, and does it get presented? Yeah, I just this is the first I've heard of it, so that's why I'm confused. But and I'm just curious, so are the schools needing to have these documents that they can provide to parents, how the kids can get to school or something? I'm just not sure what we're going to end up with as a result of the work.
Jason, can you help me?
I'll just start and say that one of the things we've been hearing from school administrators, as well as parents, as well as students, of the need to make improvements at various schools. There are parking and circulation challenges that create safety challenges to those who are walking and biking. And each school has had discussions with us about changes to curbs, to sidewalks, to bike routes to the schools. This will enable us to develop a prioritized list of improvements that are needed around the schools to be responsive to the concerns that we have been hearing and that the schools have wanted us to take a more holistic approach.
Yeah, this was a joint request that came from Public Works and the Burlington School District for the CCRPC to utilize our consultants on retainer to take a look at the school district as a whole. I think earlier you had asked about maps, and I just wanted to clarify that yes, there will be maps. I think there'll be one for each school, and there'll be one for the whole city, identifying walking and biking routes to and from schools.
So it will inform the staff and the teachers and everything, and the principals of the schools, and then that will be maybe shared with the PTA association, so everybody has improved, the facilities are improved by Public Works, and the schools are able to communicate that to the families that have their students coming to those schools. That's sort of the goal of this, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say that Commissioner Overby, as you know, we have brought several recommendations for pretty much all of the schools over the years, at least ever since I've been here. There are several projects that have come up. And this is an opportunity for us to work with the school district and consultants to just finally say, okay, let's look at all of the schools. Let's finally come up with a consistent plan and then independent plans for each one of the schools. So then we've done it. Here it is. We have a school travel plan, and now it's good to go. And it's also, we're not just showing it to staff. We're not just showing it to students. We want their involvement. We want parents' involvement. We want them to give us information on what is going to work for them.
Yeah, I think that explains the whole thing, and I think it's absolutely an excellent idea. But I just was, there is right. It was just curious how it's going to actually be used in practice. So I think you've given me enough information for me to understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize Philip's last point, because we are at that critical stage right now where we're really trying to do a robust public outreach piece. There's a couple of surveys that are out there, and we're inviting people to give us feedback on how they get to and from school and what sorts of issues they encounter if they're specifically walking and biking or taking the bus.
Absolutely, more involvement, the better.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Archambault.
Sorry, I'm slow on my unmute button. No questions at this time, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Barr.
No questions per se, but I seem to recall there was a position that a person that I know used to hold called Safe Routes to School. And I'm just curious if that position is even filled and if that's somebody that you might reach out to, because I recall that person doing several things along this line, and hopefully it hasn't gone away for 30 years. I know it hasn't gone away for 30 years, but anything you can say about that? No.
I believe we are aware of the older plans, and it is something that the older safe routes to school plans, and it is something that the consultant team is taking into account.
Okay.
Looking at the new routes.
Norm.
So my understanding is there's been a history of Nicole working with the schools in a somewhat limited way, depending on the resources that are available within the school department. And over the years, she's made many attempts to incorporate some of our work tying into the schools. And I think this sounds like, to me, like the school department's more actively involved in participating in a more comprehensive plan. So I think this is a great thing. We've done a number of things over the years. Example being studies for where crossing guards are, but tying the sidewalk inventory, transit service, all these different things that kind of pull together to make a safer route to school, as well as really getting the feedback to the customers that are being served, which is parents and students trying to attend schools and trying to identify where they see the problems are, not just what we as staff. So, I think this is a great thing. It's a deeper dive to some of the things we've done in the past, and it'll I think bear some significant fruit to improve our systems.
And this is just the beginning of the process. We don't have any recommendations yet. So this is, we're making sure to be proactive, give the commission information so that, as things proceed, we'll be able to bring that information to you and get feedback. Like, here's the draft of the plan, what the folks think. And then eventually we will have, I'm sure that we will have some recommendations and approvals that we'll be seeking.
All right, nothing further from me.
Thank you. Vice Chair O'Neill-Vivanco.
Couple things. One, and this is to public works staff. My youngest spoke in front of the commission, maybe one of the last times we were in person, or right before the pandemic, about the crosswalk at Union in Maine. And I crossed with her just this week, and hell hath no fury like a 6th grade girl, because she said, "Look at this, you people haven't fixed the crossing." So I'm just passing that on. It's right in front of Edmonds on Main Street. So put that on your list first. I have to say, so Jason, the outreach coming from, I'm a very involved parent, certainly on bike ped stuff. This predates any work on the commission. Probably I got under, Chapin's nose before all this started. The Burlington School District has not done a very good job on outreach. I mean, I'm pretty plugged in and saw something just this week or just last week. It's when everyone's going on holiday, even if we're all on staycations. So I would encourage you to encourage the school district to roll out this information again. Because I saw a blur, but then I was like, did I see it through here? Did I see it through a school district?
Yeah. I appreciate the input, and we will pass it along.
It is the plan, though, to that is something that came up in our meetings, that we are trying to soft roll this out before vacation.
Okay.
So they are planning something a little bit more robust when people come back into the swing.
Okay, very good. And I think with these school travel plans, I was very involved with Safe Routes to School, which was originally federally funded or state funded. That funding is dried up, and now they work through local motion. I think Mary Catherine, or there's a new person now who's doing the outreach. Chair Hogan might be able to speak to that because I passed that baton. But just making sure that, we're kind of talking to as many folks as possible. And that we are prioritizing our most vulnerable users, which are bikes and pedestrians, instead of the circulation of vehicles. That traffic is also the human who are physically using the infrastructure, not just the vehicles. It would be great if all these plans fit into the walk bike master plan, as well as the city of Burlington's net zero energy plan. Those are, you know, our guiding documents for our infrastructure. So please, let's look at that. And I would also say, as the, I don't know if any of you folks have children at the Burlington High School. Anybody? Anybody? What high school, you asked?
Too young for that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and what high school, right? So any surveys about the high school? So right now, my sophomore was in school for 6 months on Institute Road. He's now at the mall. He's going 2 days a week. And he will graduate from the mall. So any surveys to go out to kids, you're going to ask the freshmen who haven't even gone to Institute Road, or are you asking them about getting to downtown BHS? So, and if you're aware of what's going on with the PCBs at the school district, I feel like we don't even know as parents what's going to happen with the re-envisioning. So I would almost say, if you're going to focus on anything, focus on the downtown. We're there for the next 3.5 years, because anything on Institute Road is such a huge unknown that I feel like we're either pushing a boulder up a hill or just wasting energy right now until that gets sorted out. So those are my.
Yeah, we have had conversations. As a team, we have discussed those very things, and it's a dynamic situation.
I will admit to you that that's right, we discussed this at length with Burlington School District to figure out where to focus our survey efforts. And since we thought this was, you know, a more long-term vision,
right,
walking and biking to school specifically, that we would, we were actually asking them to focus on 52 Institute Road and not downtown. It's a really hard one to handle. As you said, everything's in a complete state of flux. Difficult one for us to really zero in on, but that was the thought process there. That yes, we knew they were going to be there probably at the mall for at least 3 years, but I think when we made the decision to finalize the surveys and put them out, the thought or hope was still that they would be back at 52 Institute Road in the future. I understand that more information is continually coming out there that is probably throwing that into question. But that's the best information I have right now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what you're asking of, you know, teenagers is to be predictive. So, you know, 4 years, the seniors, they're out of there. They're out of there, right? So now you have the juniors who would probably give the most comprehensive information, the sophomores who are, you know, resilient, but it's tough for them to answer, like, how did they get to school last year? How do they think they might get to school? They're probably like, I can't wait to get my license and I can't wait to graduate from high school because it's been such a disaster. And the freshmen have never been there. So if you look at just the data set that you'll be able to get, I can't imagine it being predictive of anything other than trauma. So good luck with that. And I do hope that I really do hope in the short term that they can find get some information about, you know, the downtown BHS, just because that's where they're going to be for the short term. Anyway, but thanks, Jason.
I'm sure we will get information in regards to the downtown high school. I'm sure that's what we will get information about that. And these surveys and the walk audits are one element of an entire picture that we're trying to put together. You know, that's the anecdotal data. The actual data that we collect will also be another major piece to this. We were looking at starting this project way sooner last year. So in January, February of 2020, we had met with I think it was the Burlington City and Lake Semester group of kids at
I was there. Yeah.
We were there.
There.
Yeah. And I mean, we were very excited about, collaborating on an engineering project with high school students, and then 2020 happened. So, yeah.
All right, we'll get those kids to school safely and just think about the bike pads. But thank you, Philip. Thank you, Jason. That's all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say look forward to seeing more on this, and I expect we could have perhaps a juicier discussion with some reading material in advance. So maybe it'd be appropriate to have a check-in sometime this summer or early fall, before like the thing drops. I think you would sort of get perhaps have more to say at that point. One question on our sort of goals, are mode share goals part of this plan, or what is? Can you sort of talk me through what? And I know you're collecting data on the sort of as is current condition, but like what's aspirational about the document to come here?
Well, as I said, we want to improve or enhance safety, and we want to use the guiding documents that we've created with the commission and other documents that the vice chair had mentioned, the planned BTV walk bike, which is new when you compare to the last time that this was done back in the 90s, and then all the other guiding documents. We also want to improve and enhance opportunities, maximize walking and biking opportunities, taking a look at where our crossing guards are, and looking at that, collecting data on those things. So that's the plan, a comprehensive plan that has cascading effects over all of our projects, really, if you think about it. I mean, the schools are kind of these GPS points all over the city that drive transit in a multitude of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, speaking of, I would suggest surveying the crossing guards as well, and sort of their take. They spend a lot of time here. Some of them are facing aggressions from drivers and getting buzzed at high speeds in some areas. They would probably have lots of good feedback on the current status quo and ideas for improving it. All right, thanks. I will also sort of encourage you all to sort of, in those aspirations, to really sort of go big with them. I mean, there are places in the world where vehicle traffic is just blocked within a certain radius of a school, and people in private vehicles can park at the vicinity, but it is really putting the safety and comfort of people, student, staff, visitors number one. And we can perhaps borrow some from those examples. Anyway, yeah, look forward to seeing much more here. I'm so glad that this is taking place. I know it was teased that this survey and plan was a thing that was going to take place a while ago. Probably what you're referring to over a year ago. We're glad to see it come to fruition. I mean, the schools are such a huge driver of transportation trips, and I sort of you just notice the difference in streets, for instance, lately on Wednesdays versus a Thursday when school's in session versus not. It's sort of like a ghost town out there. I'm like, wow, this, if we really made different modes more attractive and shifted the mode share, it could be quite a different experience out there for folks. Anyways, yeah, that's all I've got. I really look forward to seeing more on this. Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to bringing you more. Big special thanks to CCRPC and Jason and his team for keeping this ball rolling. Without their support, I think we wouldn't be where we are. So thanks, Jason. Thanks, CCRPC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure working with you.
Yeah. Mr. Goulding, do we have anyone from the public interested in speaking?
Chair Hogan, I don't think we have any members of the public left, but just to check, I'll ask if any members of the public are on and would like to speak. Please raise your hand. And I don't think there are any members of the public at this time.
All right, thank you for checking. With that, we'll close out item 7. Thank you both, Mr. Phillip, Mr. Charest, for your input tonight, and move to item 8, annual downtown parking report.
All right, just navigating the portal from being promoted. It was a little disorienting. So, so the packet has a annual report for occupancy in the garages. Actually, in the Lakeview garage in it. Would you like me to go? It's about 5-6 slides. Do I need to go through it? I'm happy to go through it, but otherwise I'm happy to answer questions. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Basic story is we are nowhere near capacity, which was the point of having this report given to you, so that we weren't abusing the giving out of permits.
I don't think we need the presentation, but we could certainly refer to it if there are specific questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you getting that in the packet for us. All right, I will open it up to my fellow commissioners for discussion here. Commissioner Archambault.
On parking, I do not have any items to contribute. Just thanking Jeff again for his attention to detail, his diligence, all of that. It's a tricky issue. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Barr.
Yeah, I also don't have any extra comments other than it's great seeing this kind of data. I know that back when you were on the commission, you wanted to see this kind of data, and now you're providing it to us. And so that's really cool. So thanks.
Thank you. All right. Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Jeff, love this stuff. It's great, even though our numbers are low. But looking like, I mean, even with like the BHS, things are peaking up a little bit. And I guess one thing is just did you indicate it here? Maybe I saw it elsewhere in the packet. Just being able to audit the businesses who are offering the free parking for their employees to make sure you're doing that on a monthly basis. Okay.
Everybody's permit expires every month. So basically, if you have a permit in the garage, your permit expires every month. And as soon as you pay, it gets renewed. And so what we're doing is having all the businesses that have employees signed up, every month they have to send us a list of employees that are still valid for parking. And we renew each and every one of them manually. So if, say they had 10 employees last month, now they only got 8. Well, they just need to send us those 8. Those 2 that they didn't send us, they just expire and they go away.
Okay.
And the employee free parking is brand new, just started last month, so we're actively auditing businesses, and as the time goes by, we'll start auditing employees also to make sure that the appropriate people are getting the free parking consistent with the goals and the policy.
Yeah, I saw the criteria. I guess one thing last month, you mentioned, or maybe a public caller mentioned that the businesses felt like this would help them because it's a benefit to their employees because they're low wage workers. Are you tracking that at all through the employers, that this free parking is any sort of, kind of retention, or is there any way to track that to see, is this really helping out our businesses?
Right now, the response has been huge. We had a free employee program going for a year to do it using validation style process. And once we actually launched the real program, so to speak, we got way more activity. We got a lot more people in. So there is, as we go on in this, we will have to come up with metrics, and we just don't quite know what those metrics are yet. Exactly how to measure how much it's costing, exactly how to measure when to audit, how frequently audit. We're going to learn how to do it.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be interesting to track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a public investment point of view. Okay,
Yep.
That's all. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Nothing further on my end. I appreciate the update. While we don't like the news, I think we're all appreciative that we have our finger on this level of detail here.
I do have to thank the ambassador crew that works there every day. All those numbers, all that data and that charts are gathered manually. So they're counting cars at least once a day, if not twice or 3 times a day, to generate that data. And the parking garage manager, operations manager, is actually managing that data set. So it's a team effort from top to bottom, so to speak.
Thank you for
Much
that
appreciated. Yeah.
acknowledgement. Yeah. Question: How far out are we from getting that data without bugging someone to collect it manually?
That's an item for another day. we have some ongoing challenges and some instability. Some variabilities in the system right now that are just they're vexing. But we work on it one way or another every day. So it's very much on our mind. We don't want to be collecting this data manually.
Sure.
But we are for now.
Okay. Commissioner Overby?
I just wanted to, always remember that there's supposedly 1,200 spots in this, and I appreciate having this data, and it's great. And we just need to keep reminding the public and ourselves that there's that many parking spots in those lots. And despite the fact that we're selling monthly parking passes. So Jeff, I totally appreciate your again, like everybody else, you're on it as far as looking at the stats and trying to figure out how to explain what's going on. And I just have one comment that relates to the usage of it that might help, that has nothing to do with your numbers, but the fact of the wayfinding, getting people out of there. A lot of people, I think, can't use that parking lot because they can't figure out how to get in it, and they can't figure out how to get from it to Church Street. So just a comment that relates to these numbers, and if we want to start boosting the numbers, that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, we do have an interior wayfinding design package that it has to be complete by the end of the fiscal year. So it has to be done by July 1st, sorry. Once that package is finalized, then we have to figure out how to pay for it. It's about $1 million worth of signage between both garages. And it will do exactly what you're saying. It will direct you from the 4th or 5th floor to the waterfront or to Church Street or to the hotels or to wherever. That's the goal of this. Specifically, we see that as a problem also.
Yeah, I'd love to see what your proposal is. And those big Ps that are now lit up outside of the, Marketplace garage, or one end of it, not the Cherry Street end seems to be burnt out or not on, but those are really excellent.
Cherry Street's not.
The big P was not lit the other day when I walked by. The one on the Bank Street was, but not the Cherry Street one.
We'll look right into that. They should all be working.
Marketplace garage?
Marketplace garage, the large P that's right above the sign, it says open. The open was lit, but the big P was not.
Oh, that's interesting. All right.
Great job otherwise, but getting people to find things is really what we need to do.
Yep, I agree.
All right, thank you. With that, touch on everyone on the commission. Mr. Goulding, is there anyone interested in public comment at this time?
Not at this time, Chair.
All right, thank you. With that, we are not seeking any action on this item. So we will thank you again, Mr. Patrick, for the presentation.
Great, thank you.
See you again soon.
Yep, sure.
All right, have a good night. Moving forward to item 9 on the agenda, approval of draft minutes from the March 17th meeting. Are there any proposed? Yes, so Commissioner Overby.
I actually do have suggested changes, which I sent to Val, and I don't know if they want what the mechanism, and I sent them to you too. I'm not sure what the best mechanism, just read them off, or should I read them off to you? What's the best method to do this?
Sure. I don't know. Does anyone have those handy with the technology to share, or if they're?
I have them on my computer. Maybe somebody.
Sure. We have the minutes as posted.
Okay, you want to just, okay, why don't I'll open up on my side the proposed changes, and then you can look at them on screen.
Sure.
You're muted, Commissioner Overby.
You can't look at your own document and turn on the speaker as well. So let's see if we can get that document back so I can read it to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. The item 5, the parking program for restaurant and retail workers. I wanted to change the way that it's written. It just says Commissioner Overby stated she is not in support of this amendment for change. And what I really wanted to clarify, have it say, Commissioner Overby stated she supports the concept, but thinks it needs work for 2 reasons: to provide incentives for not driving, and to acknowledge the value of the parking pass as a supplement to employee wages in an effort to help downtown businesses recruit employees. I have this document, and I don't know if anybody else wants to share it. I think Chairman Hogan, you have it too, so I don't know if you would rather display this on your screen. Okay. Or do you want, is this okay? If that worked for you guys, I'll just move on. And if you want me to repeat what I just read, I can do that.
I don't disagree with what you just said as a clarification. So if you have another
Anybody
one.
else think I didn't say that? I realize how difficult it is for people to synthesize what my wandering kind of explanations of things might be. So that's what I thought I said. If we're good with that, I'll move to the next one.
I'm good with that. Yes.
Okay. The next one is on item 8, the Rail Yard Enterprise Project. It says currently Commissioner Overby stated that she had contacted City Engineer Molson earlier to see if we could go back and look at other options. To make it a little more clear, I would recommend that it gets written this way. Commissioner Overby stated she had contacted City Engineer Molson earlier to clarify an item in the memo provided to the commissioners that stated the plan is to, quote, reconsider all proposed alternatives. The 2016 scoping study had recommended advancement of 3 alternatives, 1B, 2, and 5B. Molson clarified that, quote, all proposed alternatives meant other alternatives besides 1B, 2, and 5B will be considered for the design of the Rail Yard Enterprise connection between Pine Street and Battery Street. That's what I said in all my wandering around and what I was saying. If people recognize that seemed to be about accurate, then I'll move to the last one.
I have a question
Yeah,
regarding that, please.
Yes.
Are you making a statement in there declaring what Engineer Molson meant?
I asked very specifically. Yes, that was the clarification. And she did present that to us.
I'm uncomfortable with a commissioner declaring the intentions of an engineer. Maybe your interpretation of that, and it may be true, but to say, to state that she actually meant that,
let's word it however you want to word it. She clarified to me during the meeting that what all proposed alternatives meant was not just the 3 that had originally been in the mix, because I was trying to get us to have the actual maps of those 3 alternatives available to the public, and she said that all proposed alternatives meant beyond. So because it's going to the federal, it's going to be funded federally. We now are not limited to those 3 choices. Does that make sense? Let's word it.
I don't need an explanation. I'm just uncomfortable with any commissioner declaring the intention of an engineer from that interpretation.
Okay, let's see how we could word it. Molson stated that how about we just say, she stated that all proposed alternatives meant all alternatives will be considered?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the discussion of which alternatives were on the table was had, and there was clarification that, yes, even alternatives other than these 3 could be considered going forward.
that's all I'm trying to say. If we can word it that way, that's what I was just trying to say. So it's clear to the public that in fact there will be more than just those three alternatives available in the potential connecting options in the railroad enterprise connection. That works for me. If we can figure out a way to word that. Do you think you have something, Chairman Hogan, that addresses Commissioner Archambault's concern about the way I wrote this?
Well, I would ask Commissioner Archambault that sound okay. I feel like I would summarize the conversation and say that there was discussion around which alternatives would be considered going forward, and a resolution that even beyond those three stated alternatives were still on the table, like that nothing was off the table really moving forward.
Right. So now we're just highlighting what event occurred during the conversation, right? And I think that would be far more digestible than projecting what we believe was intended by an engineer.
Yeah, that works fine. That's all I was getting at.
Okay. Director Spencer.
If Commissioner Archambault is good with that, that works for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then the last one was item 11, and I don't know.
One second, Director Spencer, did you have a suggestion there?
I think the important clarification, if we're going to make a more detailed comment here, is that how I understood the conversation last time and what staff's understanding is that the three alternatives that Commissioner Overby mentioned will be evaluated, and there's a possibility that other alternatives may be looked at as well. That all other options being evaluated, I don't think quite hits the message right from what we understand from Federal Highway, and I think how Susan described it at the last meeting.
Yeah, I think
fair.
Yeah, I just wanted it to be clear that we got more choices, so people can't count on it being maybe one of those three. That was what I was trying to get clarification of. So the item 11, it said Commissioner Overby heard that there was no longer an appeals process for permitting and inspections and asked for clarity. Concern was expressed to me by a city councilor, so I had said I would replace that with just adding in, changing it to Commissioner Overby heard concern expressed by a city councilor that there was no longer an appeals process for permitting and inspections and asked for clarity, and the rest of it's the same. But I didn't have a concern that there was an appeal, lost by the new division, but I had somebody who, a councilor that asked me that, and I said, no, I don't think it's changed. So we're sure now that's what the issue is. It's not changed. Does that make sense? Is it necessary or not?
I'm fine with that.
Anybody else that didn't hear me say that, or maybe they did? I think we're good unless somebody else has if I didn't say it, that's the problem here. We don't want to have me making up something that I didn't say.
So this is Tiki Archambault again. Sorry, if I could make a suggestion, maybe just to. Sounds like Commissioner Overby has some important points to be added to these minutes, and it might be best if we push these minutes off by a month so we can review what that language would be, if it could be circulated with the rest of the commission, and then that gives us a chance to just look it over and see if there might be something that stands out for any of us, kind of like the objection that I had.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's do that.
Perhaps
we could get your suggested modifications in front of the commission in advance for review.
Well, perhaps we should just figure out that process, because I send them, but I don't know what the process is, and I'm not supposed to communicate with everybody in advance as a group. So perhaps if I anybody sends suggestions to the minutes to you as the chairman, you could circulate them directly to people in advance of the meeting, so we can all have them all in advance.
Sure.
And I didn't know how to do it efficiently.
Honestly, if that's sent day of, it may not happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Well, then we're back to where we're at.
These are posted 3 days after the last meeting, so they're all up. We all have the opportunity to to review in advance. But we can get these to staff get
Yeah.
into Val and like maybe have what we've talked about in the past, perhaps have sort of like a track change, like, hey, these are suggestions, prepared in advance for presentation.
Yeah, I will do it whatever is the most efficient way, because this feels terribly inefficient, and I totally appreciate, I apologize for doing it this way, but I didn't know how to do it more efficiently than send them to Val, send them to you, they're available, but I didn't feel like I was allowed to send them around to the rest of the commissioners in advance. So,
Sure.
Good enough.
Yeah, Commissioner Barr.
I guess I just want to make a quick comment. Is this not why, and I've been on the commission for a while, I guess, so I've seen it start and finish this way. Isn't this not why we had a clerk position on the commission that would kind of do a quick overview of the minutes prior to the next meeting? And I know we just did away with that too. So I'm just trying to figure out, are we ebbing and flowing back and forth here, trying to figure out how to get this done the most efficient way?
I'll say we have a clerk that's a staff member.
Mm-hmm. So, okay.
But it doesn't work if you just send them to the staff and then the rest of the commissioners don't get to see the words, which is where we're at here today. If you do it on the day of the meeting, which sometimes does happen. So that's the real question.
Chair Hogan, if it's all right, may I make a recommendation to consider?
Yeah, please.
So Val and I just didn't connect on that one, and my apologies on that, but I could recommend that if folks have changes for the minutes to be sent directly to me and Val, just in case her and I don't connect, because then I can make sure that they are available to bring up, and then maybe we can figure out if there's a better way to do that. But at the very least, if I have them, they can be present on the screen.
Sure. Yeah, no, that would be good. I apologize. Wasn't on the flick here to forward these to you, Rob, for sharing on the spot, but I think that's
no worries. We had them, Val had them, and her and I just needed to connect better on that. So we can make that work better in the future for everybody.
Sure. All right. Well,
I'll do that, and I apologize for always having changes, but sometimes I feel like it's important when clearly my spoken words have not, have been so circuitous that it's hard for people to figure out what I said.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks. We'll do it next month.
Yeah, fine with that. Do we? I guess we. Do we need to formally say we're tabling it till next month?
I can make a motion.
No action is necessary. I don't think you can just take no action, and we'll put it back on the agenda next month.
No action is no action. All right. Let's
so
proceed.
No motion is
Thank you.
necessary. No motion necessary. I was ready.
I was ready too, Jim.
I do appreciate.
And Don second that no motion.
And who's going to circulate the proposed minutes change? Is that going to be Rob? Are you going to do that?
He usually gets sent to us, right?
I just didn't know. Should I send them to you now?
Yeah, you can send them to me and Val, and her and I will work together to make sure maybe we can figure out and propose the best format to make this.
Val had them and Chairman Hogan had them, but that was the only two people I sent them to. So I failed to send them to you. I will send them to you and Val again.
No worries at all. We'll make this work for next month.
Perfect. Sure. Thanks.
And I see that I had them, but I was not in a position to take time, do anything timely with it during the day today. Anywho, moving forward to item 10, director's report.
Great, thank you so much. Given the hour, you have the information in your packet. One key element in the director's report was our mid-year report on our FY21 goals and objectives for DPW. Next month, you all will be reviewing the performance of the director and the city engineer, myself and Norm Baldwin. And we wanted to give you all the materials to see what the department has, I think, successfully accomplished during the midst of this pandemic. And happy to answer any questions at this point, but we hope that the document's helpful for your review.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate the input. If there are, I guess, commissioner responses, let's take them in our commissioner communications. That's next on the agenda. All right, about Commissioner Barr, to start with any final communications.
Actually, oddly enough, I don't have any for this month.
All
I've been
right.
biking a little bit out there. I can see the infrastructure starting to grow again, some paint being put down, so appreciate that. And looking forward to next month's conversation about Colchester Avenue. Other than that, always a great job. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Hang on, honey, I'm almost done. Sorry. So just a comment about recycling that someone sent to me, so I'm just going to read it. I just posted this to see Click Fix, but don't have any confidence that it will have an impact. Having just walked up Henry and Loomis, I can tell you how many similar circumstances are evident and how much trash is in the street and along the sidewalk. This should not be a baseline condition. Recycling is becoming anti-environmental. If at all it is doing is putting trash into the streets and down storm drains, as well as glass and other dangerous items on sidewalks and in the bike lanes. There is a widely ignored ordinance on the books requiring some landlords to supply totes. DPW now has a lot and no more curbside bins are given out. Increasingly, cardboard boxes and paper bags are falling over into the streets. This has gone on for years, and before the ordinance about rentals and totes was taken up, I was reporting this to Chapin and the mayor. At our recent NPA meeting, DPW explained their current policy of sending nice notes to residents who do not keep trash contained, but there is no requirement issued or follow-up. Contact with Planning Commission indicates that there has been some discussion but no movement, and neither the mayor's office nor DPW seems inclined to take action to even enforce what we have, not to speak of taking up keeping trash out of pedestrian ways and bikeways, as well as storm drains. I hope there's an opportunity to take this up with the DPW Commission. So we think we've all seen it, the blue bins that are not the totes. You get a windy day, especially this time of year, it's just gross and rubbishy. And I don't know where enforcement lies, or how we can get more totes. Even like my neighbors across the street, I just get frustrated that I'm constantly picking up their recycling. So it's happening across town. That's my comment. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Overby. If you're there, you're muted.
Try it again. That space bar was not working.
Gotcha.
I don't have specific communications, but I do have questions that I have about the goals and objectives, which I will just, I guess, because of the lateness of the hour, I will directly ask those questions of Director Spencer, because I did have questions about that, about several items on the objectives and goals, and it's just too late for me to try to ask those questions considering the lateness of the night. So you will not benefit from my questions or the answers, probably. Sorry. All right. No other comments.
Sure. All right. Yeah, take that offline in that case. Commissioner Archambault.
Yeah, I had no comments until we got to the public comment section here, and I just feel the need to respond. It was to Jason Van Driesche made some comments, especially getting into the season, because in the next month we are expected to review the director and the city engineer as part of our charter, our mandated course as a commission. And I just wanted to take exception to the comments, and I really do appreciate Jason as a community member, super smart. And in many ways, I'm sympathetic. I've advocated for a long time for quick wins from this department, and we don't see them that often. So I continue to try to advocate for that. But where I take exception is that I'm not is the problem, right? I see a city engineers struggling with a community where there's a lot of voices, almost every last one of them willing to lay down on a road over a crosswalk or a pothole. And it is got to be immensely challenging for someone in that position to produce quick results when there are multiple opinions on an issue. So I do take exception to that and say that really, I don't know, I'm not convinced that the problem is the city engineer as much as us, ourselves, and what we expect of the folks who work for us, especially when we hear about our snow plow drivers, the level of human dignity, I guess, if you will, for our city employees seems to be at an all-time low. And I take serious exception to those comments. So I had to put that out there. I feel compelled to honor our department and those who work for them, including our city engineer. And I don't know, that's just me tonight. So thank you.
Well stated. Thank you. I guess it just seems to me one thing I've been thinking about of late, sort of reminiscing on some of the bright spots of their disruptions over the past year and change here, and wondering, where things land with, some of the neighborhood streets programs that were rolled out last year. And as we're sort of looking forward and starting to see the political wind shifting towards coming out of emergency status, we'll remind all of us that it doesn't necessarily take an emergency to give space to people on their neighborhood streets. And I think, maybe worth a reflection if we got the bandwidth in a future meeting to take a step back and look at some of those, some of the streets that were designated as local traffic only. Arguably, maybe there's not a good reason to welcome other than local traffic, and to just, make that more of the rule going forward rather than the emergency exception. So anyway, I know it's late and I won't dwell on it too much, but it's something that's been of mind as we're, well, except for today, looking past winter maintenance season, hopefully, and with an eye towards people being outside and still breathing and sharing space. Anyways.
We'd be happy to talk about that at a subsequent meeting.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you all and all of your teams for the great work and the efforts. As always, we appreciate, again, the depth and breadth of interesting conversation topics tonight, and look forward to connecting next time. With that, I will close out item 11 and go to item 10, adjournment and next meeting date, May 19th.
Item 12, a motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion.
I second that.
Seconded by Vice Chair Onyema-Vaco. All right. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right. I think we're safe to go to a vote here. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye for myself. Any opposed? All right. Unopposed. We are adjourned at 9:28. Thank you all. We'll see you May 19th.
Thank you.
Great seeing
Thank
you all.
you.
Good evening.
Good night.
Thanks.